It's like I never left, isn't it? Old-timers and newcomers, I am Core Scratches, and thank you for joining me to take another look at what I found. You know, the best way to assess things is to take a step back and look upon them from a distance, and what I found is very concerning. In my absence, I kept receiving comments, and my channel jumped from 125 subscribers to 150. It's almost as if people actually want to see this fecal matter. Are you okay? Don't worry, I will be here making more videos until you're ready to become a healthy, functional, miserable member of society who don't care that you're alone in an inimical universe watching the gradual decay of dead matter advancing under the guise of free will. Material or immaterial, it doesn't matter. The distinction is pedantic. Reality is meaningless all the same. We're nothing but passengers strapped down to driveling meat, panicking as the ground disintegrates beneath us, forced to stare into the inevitable maw of nihil, waiting to be unmade once again. So smile, smile, smile. All with the help of one small pill organically sourced from naturally occurring blight, because you're not part of a problem if there is no solution. Have the algorithm been kind to you, you may have managed to sidestep the emergence of analog horror upon the internet. It's an evolution of found footage born from millennials looking back upon 1900s media and finding it terrifying. It's media projected upon a translucent screen. It's as familiar as the morning sun, but alien in its execution, contrived through technologies and portrayed in ways they don't understand. It's a ghost of what was before, documenting an existence they've never known. A world of frightening unknowns and unthinkable reality. A mirror through which what was may stare back with wonder and just maybe reach out to touch us. Think? Cards on the table, I don't know a lot about analog horror. I mean, you'd think I'd be all about it, but I don't know. I was born in the 90s. I mean, I remember watching movies on cassette tapes. I have first-hand experience dealing with a dial-up modem. I know a VCR interface, and analog horror, it seems less interested in showing what that stuff was like and more interested in what people think it was like. It's just very hard for me to take seriously. Of course, it doesn't help that I'm mostly exposed to it through other people reacting to it, but so when I found one that I hadn't experienced before, I thought I'd better pounce. But please don't follow that example. Stay with me. Please. I just came back, you can't leave me now! Similar to the Mandela catalog, the Smile Tapes is more pieces of a puzzle than a cohesive story. Each video provides a bit more information to what's going on, but leaves it up to the audience to make sense of it. With that said, my normal style of review doesn't really fit with what the Smile Tapes are. I will tell you right now, I think you should watch it, and if I tell you the exact course of events, not only will there be no point for you to go watch the videos if you haven't, but there's nothing to say my interpretation will be accurate as the story progresses and Patrico develops it further. I'll only be going over the broad strokes and what I think of the project as a whole. The show isn't finished yet. Patrico posted a new segment just 2 weeks ago, so I'll only be focusing on the first season, condensed into a convenient 50-minute video on Patrico's YouTube channel. My, it's a light meal I return with, isn't it?
Best as I can describe it, the Smile tapes document the gradual rise and fall of a zombie infestation.
And I nearly turned it off right there, but I stuck with it and I'm glad I did. It gets good.
It's been said the world hasn't become more brutal, just more televised. 1994 was a year of quiet carnage for the world at large. The news bellowed about Nelson Mandela's presidency, the ceasefire in Ireland, and the peace accord in the Middle East. All to forget the mass murder in Rwanda, the bombardment in Sarajevo, the shooter in Chidinilo. Across several months, the United States healthcare and law enforcement agencies saw the emergence of a new street drug in and near the city of Chidinilo, California. What the high was like, where the drug came from, what it consisted of, for a long time none of these questions could be answered. All that was known was its side effects, which, when discovered, was immediately recognized and warned of by the authorities. Uncontrollable laughter, manic delusions, violent tendencies, but very little came of this. The disregard that seemed taken by the public was remarkable. Perhaps they were disillusioned by the war on drugs. Maybe it was assumed to be just another scare tactic. Bogus numbers made up to scare the sheltered and conservative, not to question the modus operandi of the government. Either way, it wasn't until New Year's Day 1995 that real scrutiny was put upon the story.
The first 3 or so videos tell different aspects of these events, working to set up further eyewitness accounts. That's all well and good, but I get the distinct feeling Puerto Rico didn't initially know how he wanted to set up all of this. It seems a little experimental.
This message is broadcasted to raise awareness of a new drug in circulation, the Smile drug. We advise for you to stay away from any person suspected to be under its influence. For the past few months, we have received over 500 deaths related to the drug.
Okay, so this setup is familiar enough. Creepy synthesized voice reiterating a typed message over a black background. It's the absolute essentials of analog horror, and it looks really good. It really looks good. It looks like an old VHS recording, and it's strange enough to be unsettling, but then I started thinking about it. This style is supposed to mimic an emergency broadcast system, isn't it? Or maybe a hacked television signal. The idea is, in the event of an active shooter, an incoming tornado, any immediate catastrophe, basically, the local channel is supposed to be able to flick a switch, type out what information they have, and give information or on what to do without having to set up a studio, broadcaster, camera operator, feed manager, etc. It's supposed to simplify the warning to its absolute essentials, letting you know that A, this is happening right the hell now, and B, this is some serious shit that's about to rain down on you. This video does not convey emergency to me. It's more of a public service announcement, encouraging people to be careful and sensible, but not telling them they're in immediate danger. I mean, we know they are because we go into this knowing it's a horror show, but within the story it's too early for them to be this frightened. That said, I think it's just a matter of pacing.
Following a rundown of the drug's effects, the PSA iterates how most deaths related to the drug have occurred in alleys late at night, and warns the public to stay away from lightless areas and be wary of the sound of laughter. This makes it out as if it's not the drug itself, but its users that are the danger to the public.
Let's see what happens when I switch this around.
This message is broadcasted to raise awareness of dark alleys. If you hear suspicious laughter, run as fast as you can. Avoid eye contact with the person. Do not interact. You will most likely be...
Works a lot better, doesn't it? That felt like an emergency, like you need to keep your butt indoors because there's violent people about. Still, that's not the direction Patrico decided to go with the story. He decided to make it a gradual uptick of deaths until the goblet runs over. And this is the announcement of the show, so the most important thing is to grab people's attention and convey what it's about. Which brings me to my second criticism. I think he blows his load too early.
The video goes on to explain in detail what the drug does, what is known about it, and more or less how it works. I've heard somewhere that spoilers make people more driven to check movies and shows out, and I understand Patrico wanting to hype it up because it goes some pretty awesome places. But I think he got a bit excited and gave away too much. He had recovered media that implied tragedy, he had people disappearing in the dark, he had psychopaths with creepypasta faces. All he needed to do was end the PSA by warning the public from investigating further and assure us it was under control and we were safe. That would have been enough to be intriguing, and maybe much more satisfying to pursue the mystery and find the horrible truth out for ourselves. Instead, he just goes ahead and spoils it first thing.
I don't know if you have a sense of professional courtesy, Patrico, but to be clear, that's my job!
This brings us neatly to my final complaint with the introduction to the show. The editing for the faces.
They are scary. I make no bones about that. You put that in a gradual uncanny video, I expect some noisy doom metal over it. And they captured the grainy, slightly off-looking sensation of distorted video that makes up analog horror, but they are very obviously photoshopped.
They're all forward-facing, they're all progression shots, and the violently manic victims of smile zombification seem perfectly complacent and happy to assist the photographers by sitting politely still when the camera goes off. Not to mention the obvious disregard for anatomy, with the smile stretching past their cheekbones and how flat it all looks. It looks creepy, but not real.
The immediate defense is to compare it to something like the Mandela Catalog, and to that I say, the Mandela Catalog has the same damn problem. That said, I will compare it positively.
The Blue Channel. The Blue Channel
is another analog horror project that is more interested in conveying an idea than a series of events. By using unsettling and distorted images, it implies a dark and disturbing reality that's more out of mind than out of matter. At first, the smile tapes seem to only be documenting a monstrous tragedy, but as the tapes goes on, a supernatural force begins affecting them. The dead begin speaking through the screen, disturbing messages flash in still frames, heads-up displays appear on video. I think Patrico intended to make us feel as if we have recovered this footage and give us the experience of putting a tape in a VCR, and then whatever evil we're witnessing starts attempting to cross over through the screen.
It comes out of nowhere and feels a little jarring, but it's not far enough out of left field to take away from the experience, unless you really want to nitpick.
At the onslaught of the new year 1995 and the death of spree killer Sean Gomez, public awareness of the smile drug explodes overnight. Poison and contagion, vilifying propaganda is distributed at large. Soon enough, all and sundry know as much as any scientist, which is frighteningly little. The pills don't actually contain a drug or a chemical, but seed. They're sporal aggregates, compressed and distributed as tablets and edibles to feckless pipeheads and yuppies. Who? Why? No one knows. And even intense study don't explain the traumatic effect it has upon the body. Across several weeks it emulsify and warp both body and mind, seizing the victim's lips in a cramp-like morbid smile far larger than natural, and trap the sufferer in a perpetual delirious mania. But not before the dreams start. When the world melts away, when the stars unfold and plunge their minds through the cosmos until they meet a man. And when he smiles, all the pain and fear is washed away, leaving you happy, wanting to make everyone happy, willing to make everyone happy. We're all familiar with the story about Pandora and the box. A better simile would be the spirit in the bottle. For all the warnings, for all the concern, for all the public service, some people live their lives with blinders. It's the only way to explain how suddenly the plague became a fact. Fungi are an amazingly versatile creation of nature. Their adaptability is near intelligent, their endurance allowing them to trial and error themselves through any complication. In lab environments, they've been found to transmit electrochemical signals between growth clusters, with some scientists believing they may even hold a rudimentary awareness. It didn't take long for the infection to mutate. The smilers began puffing clouds of spores, infecting the people around them. The formerly fragile flesh turned sinuous and plastic. Whatever unearthly evil had possessed their flesh, it no longer needed whatever was left of its host to act. Bullets and weapons stopped working, and soon enough they grew bolder. No longer hiding in the shadows or out of sight, they rose up as one and hunted down the still living.
Back to what I said about style v substance. That shot is amazing!
It's clearly CGI, but damn it looks good. It looks like a miniature model from a kaiju film, except I don't think even the original Godzilla felt as cataclysmic as this. And you cannot tell me this was not intentional. The flames are too big and too fast to look to scale with the buildings, but the 1960s creature effect style blends very well with the analog horror.
Puerto Rico was ambitious when it set out to make this show. A lot of analog horror has a bigger scope, implying and suggesting something earth-shattering is going on, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any one show that actually shows the devastation. This could have been so easy to fuck up. If it hadn't looked good, it wouldn't have worked, but clearly Puerto Rico is skilled not just in After Effects, but in computer modeling as well. Which makes scenes like this all the more confusing.
It's quite a good view up here.
Man, that CGI is shit!
Talk about something else now. While the Smile tapes are mostly a loose history for the world Puerto Rico has created, there is a separate story taking place in the same universe. It's called They Lie Above, and tells of a family affected by the tragedy in ways you wouldn't expect. During a test flight of the X-15 rocket plane, Neil Armstrong came into close contact with a UFO floating near the Kármán line, some 62 miles above the surface of the Earth. Before this, it has been heavily implied the Smile infection may not have evolved on Earth at all, but the spore traveled here on a meteor some 60 million years ago. Further on, when things were at their worst, and it appeared as if the Smilers would just keep spreading from city to city and outwards, someone stepped in and cauterized the infection in its tracks.
This connects to a random encounter Armstrong had with a man named William Basil, after which Basil's family began experiencing disturbing and unexplainable events. The basic gist is the family is being terrorized because the government is hiding something, which connects to the Smile infection and the possible alien life on Earth. And in my opinion, that's not very interesting whatsoever, and discussing it would stretch beyond the first season. What I can tell you is I am looking forward to what's next.
Honestly, I think the Smile tapes are fine where they are right now, as a slightly open mystery ripped from the annals of an alternate universe. I'm fine with not having a complete picture because I enjoyed the ride enough as it was. I also like the fact it's not really a story, but just an event that took place. It's not like a Slenderman clone or The Sun Vanished.
Come to think of it, I actually do know a lot of analog horror.
It's an eyewitness account to a tragedy difficult to explain or forget. It feels a lot more real and unnerving that way, but it is held back by the moments where Puerto Rico forget it's supposed to be caught on camera and the somewhat hokey writing.
I still enjoyed it, but I can't pretend it's perfect.
I haven't touched a lot on how it's written, but it's very direct and at times it reads like an initial draft, like the notes you make to remember what you want your characters to talk about, think and feel, and then rewrite to make it seem more natural. Whenever there was talk about science or motivation, it never feels genuine. The strength is definitely the world building and visuals. They are glorious to behold. Especially late at night when people are asleep and you gradually raise the sound louder and louder to hear the quiet dialogue, only to wake the whole house with your screaming and the blaring sirens in the speakers. Not that there is a lot of jump scare moments, it relies mostly on suspense and atmosphere. And it was really fun to sit through, and I didn't feel tired at having to do it again. I sentenced the Smile Tapes to a 7 on a scale of 11.
Thank you all for watching. I have been Core Scratches, and I hope you will join me again next time to take another look at what I found.